The avoidant doesn't just accidentally create push-pull dynamics, they orchestrate them with the precision of a master manipulator who understands exactly how to transform confident, secure people into anxious, approval-seeking partners who will do anything to earn their inconsistent attention. This isn't about their trauma making them emotionally unavailable. This is about their unconscious but calculated use of intermittent reinforcement to create psychological dependency that serves their ego while keeping you constantly off balance and desperately trying to win back their interest. The interest trap is the most insidious form of emotional manipulation because it feels like passion, like intensity, like the kind of love worth fighting for. They create artificial scarcity around their affection, making their attention feel so valuable and unpredictable that you become addicted to earning it. What starts as your natural response to someone pulling away gradually transforms into a complete rewiring of your personality around their approval, their moods, their availability, their unpredictable schedule of rewards and withdrawals. The cruelest aspect of this trap is how it targets your strengths and turns them into weaknesses that serve their psychological needs. Your empathy becomes a tool they use to excuse their behavior. Your loyalty becomes the chain that keeps you accepting less than you deserve. Your love becomes the weapon they use to control your behavior while avoiding any reciprocal emotional investment. They don't want to be with someone clingy and needy. They want to create someone clingy and needy so they can feel powerful, desired, and in complete control of the relationship's emotional thermostat. The setup. How they create artificial scarcity of their attention. The avoidance interest trap begins with the careful cultivation of artificial scarcity around their attention, affection, and emotional availability. Like a skilled economist manipulating market dynamics, they understand that making their love feel rare and unpredictable increases its perceived value in your emotional marketplace. This isn't accidental distance or natural emotional variation. It's the systematic creation of shortage, where abundance should exist, designed to make you crave what they're deliberately withholding. Watch how they ration their positive responses to your affection, giving you just enough warmth to keep you invested, but never enough to feel secure. When you express love, they might respond with lukewarm appreciation rather than matching your energy. When you show enthusiasm about your connection, they offer measured responses that leave you wondering if you're more invested than they are. This emotional portion control teaches you to treasure their rare moments of genuine warmth while accepting their frequent coolness as normal. They master the art of selective availability, being fully present and engaged during some interactions while seeming distracted, busy, or emotionally absent during others. This inconsistency keeps you constantly guessing about their interest level and analyzing every interaction for signs of their true feelings. You never know which version of them you'll encounter, the warm, connected partner or the distant, preoccupied stranger. So you remain hypervigilant and grateful for their good moments. Their communication patterns reflect this artificial scarcity through delayed responses, minimal enthusiasm, and carefully measured emotional investment in your conversations. They might take hours to respond to your messages, while being active on social media, respond to your excitement with bland acknowledgement, or give you their partial attention while clearly being capable of full engagement when it suits their needs. This training teaches you that their full attention is a rare gift rather than a basic relationship expectation. The scarcity extends to their physical presence and quality time, where they become masters of being present but not really there. They might sit beside you while scrolling their phone, attend events with you while seeming like they'd rather be elsewhere, or schedule time together that feels more like obligation than desire. This physical presence without emotional engagement makes you work harder for genuine connection while accepting their minimal effort as sufficient. They create artificial competition for their attention by maintaining active connections with exes, potential romantic interests, or friends who clearly want more than friendship. While they claim these relationships are platonic or meaningless, their investment in maintaining these connections creates the subtle message that their attention is a limited resource with multiple claimants. You're not the only person vying for their interest, so you better work harder to earn it. Their social media behavior often reflects this scarcity mindset where they're active and responsive to others while being minimal in their public acknowledgement of your relationship. They might like and comment on other people's posts while barely engaging with yours, post frequently about their individual activities while rarely including you, or maintain an online presence that suggests availability rather than commitment. This digital scarcity makes you question your importance in their life. The scarcity trap includes their resistance to making plans or commitments that would indicate genuine interest in spending time with you. They prefer last-minute invitations, resist scheduling regular date nights, and treat future planning as pressure rather than excitement about shared time. This planning scarcity keeps you in a constant state of uncertainty about when you'll see them next and whether they actually want to spend time with you. They often create artificial urgency around their availability, suggesting that their time and attention are so valuable and in demand that you need to appreciate whatever access you're given. They might mention how busy they are, how many people want their time, or how rare it is for them to make themselves available for relationships. This messaging positions their attention as a privilege rather than a natural part of caring for someone. The most sophisticated aspect of their scarcity creation is how they make their emotional availability conditional on your perfect behavior, emotional management, and acceptance of their limitations. You learn that their warmth and connection are rewards for being understanding, undemanding, and grateful rather than natural expressions of care for someone they love. This conditioning makes you perform the perfect partner rather than being your authentic self. The bait, making you work for basic relationship needs. The avoidant transforms what should be fundamental relationship givens, consistency, affection, communication, and respect, into achievements you must earn through perfect behavior, emotional management, and unwavering acceptance of their limitations. They reframe basic human needs for connection as excessive demands, turning love into a performance-based contract where you're constantly auditioning for the role of worthy partner, rather than simply being valued for who you are. Watch how they make their consistent presence feel like a reward for your good behavior, rather than a natural expression of care. When you're understanding about their need for space, they might be more available. When you don't complain about their mixed signals, they offer slightly more warmth. When you accept their emotional limitations without protest, they throw you crumbs of affection that feel like major victories. This conditioning teaches you that love is something you earn through compliance, rather than something freely given between people who care about each other. They systematically redefine relationship standards downward until you're grateful for treatment that would have been unacceptable when you first met them. Your natural expectation for regular communication becomes neediness. Your desire for emotional intimacy becomes pressure. Your need for consistency becomes unrealistic expectations. Through this gradual erosion of standards, they train you to accept less and less while feeling grateful for whatever minimal effort they provide. Their affection becomes contingent on your emotional labor, where your job is to make loving them easy and convenient rather than expecting them to invest effort in loving you. You learn to monitor their moods, anticipate their needs, and manage their comfort level with intimacy while your own emotional needs become secondary considerations. The relationship becomes about serving their psychological requirements while your requirements get reframed as burdens they shouldn't have to carry. The bait includes making you compete for their emotional investment against their work, their hobbies, their friends, and their need for solitude. Instead of these being balanced parts of a whole life that includes prioritizing your relationship, they become competing interests where you must prove you're worth their time and attention. You find yourself arguing for your importance rather than having your importance assumed as a basic relationship fact. They make their vulnerability and emotional openness feel like rare gifts that must be earned through perfect patience, understanding, and acceptance of their process. When they do share something personal, it feels like a major breakthrough that validates all your efforts to be worthy of their trust. This makes you work harder to create conditions they deem safe for emotional sharing, rather than expecting emotional intimacy as a natural part of caring relationships. Your access to their time, attention, and physical presence becomes dependent on your mood, your behavior, and your acceptance of their terms rather than flowing naturally from their desire to be with you. If you're having a difficult day, they become less available. If you express needs, they withdraw their presence. If you seem upset about their behavior, they punish you with distance. This teaches you to perform happiness and contentment to maintain their minimal engagement. They turn basic relationship conversations into negotiations where you must justify your needs and convince them that your concerns are valid rather than having your feelings automatically respected and addressed. Discussions about the relationship's future become debates where you argue for commitment while they present cases for maintaining the status quo. Communication about problems becomes you trying to prove that issues exist while they minimize or deflect your concerns. The bait extends to making their sexual attention and physical affection feel like rewards for being the ideal partner rather than natural expressions of attraction and love. Their touch becomes something you earn through good behavior rather than something they want to give because they're drawn to you. This creates a dynamic where physical intimacy feels like payment for services rendered rather than mutual desire and connection. They make their good mood and positive energy feel dependent on your ability to avoid triggering their discomfort, making you responsible for managing their emotional state while they take no responsibility for managing yours. You learn to walk on eggshells to preserve their positive moments rather than expecting them to take responsibility for their own emotional regulation while remaining open to connection regardless of their internal state. Your relationship security becomes contingent on your performance rather than their commitment, making you feel like you're constantly in a probationary period where one mistake could result in their withdrawal or departure. This creates chronic anxiety about your standing in their affections and makes you hyper-vigilant about avoiding any behavior that might threaten their continued interest. They make their promises and commitments feel like rewards for exceptional behavior rather than natural expressions of their intention to build a future with you. Future planning becomes something you must earn rather than something they're excited to engage in, making you feel like you're convincing them to want a relationship with you rather than both of you building something together because you care about each other. The most insidious aspect of this bait is how it makes you grateful for receiving basic respect, minimal consistency, and occasional affection, things that should be automatic in any caring relationship. You become so accustomed to working for love that when they offer basic human decency, it feels like generosity rather than the absolute minimum standard for how people who care about each other should treat one another. The hook. How your pursuit validates their ego and control. Your increasing efforts to earn their inconsistent attention feed directly into the avoidant's deepest psychological needs for validation, control, and proof of their desirability without requiring them to reciprocate vulnerability or emotional investment. Every time you chase their withdrawal, analyze their mixed signals, or work harder to win their approval, you're providing narcissistic supply that confirms their importance while avoiding the risk of being equally invested and therefore equally vulnerable to loss or rejection. The pursuit dynamic satisfies their ego by proving they're valuable enough to fight for, special enough to chase, and powerful enough to have someone rearrange their entire emotional life around earning their attention. Your anxiety about their interest becomes evidence of their desirability. Your efforts to understand their behavior become proof of their complexity and depth. Your willingness to accept their limitations becomes confirmation of their specialness, and your gratitude for whatever access they provide. Watch how they subtly encourage your pursuit through intermittent reinforcement that rewards your chasing behavior just enough to keep you engaged. When you pull back, they offer slightly more attention. When you stop analyzing their behavior, they become more confusing. When you start focusing on your own life, They create just enough connection to draw you back into orbit around their emotional unavailability. This carefully timed encouragement keeps you pursuing while maintaining their position of being pursued. Your emotional labor becomes their entertainment and validation, where your efforts to decode their feelings, understand their patterns, and anticipate their needs provide ongoing proof of your investment without requiring equal investment from them. They enjoy being studied, analyzed, and catered to because it confirms their importance while allowing them to remain mysterious, unpredictable, and ultimately unknowable. Your work to understand them becomes their validation that they're worth the effort. The control aspect becomes intoxicating for someone whose attachment style developed around the need to manage emotional outcomes and avoid vulnerability. By training you to pursue them, they maintain complete control over the relationship's emotional temperature, timing, and direction. They can create distance when they feel overwhelmed and closeness when they need validation, using your pursuit patterns to regulate their own emotional state without having to communicate their needs directly. Your increasing emotional investment, while theirs remains minimal, creates a power imbalance that feels safe and manageable to their nervous system. They get to experience being loved without the terror of loving equally in return. They receive devotion without providing consistency. They enjoy pursuit without offering security. This one-sided dynamic gives them all the benefits of being in a relationship while avoiding most of the emotional risks. They often develop addiction to the validation your pursuit provides, becoming psychologically dependent on your anxiety, effort, and emotional labor to feel good about themselves. Your worry about their interests becomes their proof of being interesting. Your work to maintain their attention becomes their evidence of being worth working for. Your accommodation of their limitations becomes their confirmation that they're special enough to deserve such patience and understanding. The hook deepens when they realize they can influence your mood, behavior, and entire emotional state through small adjustments in their attention and availability. This power to affect someone so profoundly through minimal effort feels intoxicating and safe. They can create major emotional responses in you without having to invest major emotional energy themselves. Your responsiveness to their subtle cues gives them a sense of control they rarely experience in other areas of life. Your pursuit behavior often becomes their primary source of relationship satisfaction, more rewarding to them than actual intimacy or connection. The knowledge that someone is working so hard to earn their love feels better than the vulnerability required for mutual love. The evidence of their importance to you feels safer than the risk of them becoming equally important to you. They prefer being chased to being caught because being caught requires staying, and staying requires ongoing emotional availability they're not prepared to provide. They begin to structure their behavior around maintaining your pursuit rather than building genuine connection, creating mystery when you seem satisfied, withdrawal when you seem secure, and unpredictability when you start adapting to their patterns. Your pursuit becomes more important to them than your presence. Your anxiety more valuable than your happiness, your effort more rewarding than your love. The validation extends to their social world, where having someone so obviously devoted to earning their attention confirms their desirability to friends, family, and potential romantic alternatives. Your pursuit behavior becomes social proof of their value, making them appear more attractive to others while providing ongoing evidence that they're worthy of devotion and effort. Your emotional state becomes their mood regulator, where your anxiety during their withdrawal phases makes them feel powerful and desired, while your happiness during their attention phases validates their ability to make someone feel good without having to sustain that emotional generosity long term. They use your emotional responsiveness to their behavior as a way to feel significant and impactful without the vulnerability of genuine emotional investment. The most tragic aspect of this hook is how they often lose interest when your pursuit decreases not because they want genuine connection, but because they've become addicted to the validation your pursuit provides. They don't want you to stop chasing, because then they lose their primary source of ego confirmation and emotional control. This creates a dynamic where your health and happiness are inversely related to their interest. The more you pursue, the more engaged they are. But the more you pursue, the less authentic self you become. The trap tightens. When you lose yourself in their validation cycles, once you're fully caught in the avoidance interest trap, your entire personality begins to reorganize around their unpredictable approval patterns, creating an addiction to their validation that hijacks your natural decision-making processes and authentic self-expression. You stop being yourself and start being the version of yourself that seems most likely to earn their positive attention, losing touch with your own needs, preferences, and boundaries as they become secondary considerations to maintaining their interest. The addiction to their approval operates like any other addiction, where the intermittent reinforcement of their attention creates neurochemical reward patterns that make their rare positive responses feel more valuable and significant than consistent kindness from others. Their unpredictable schedule of warmth and withdrawal triggers dopamine responses that make their attention feel special and worth pursuing, even when that pursuit requires sacrificing your emotional well-being and authentic self-expression. Your decision-making process becomes filtered through their potential reactions rather than your own values and desires. Before making plans, you consider whether they'll approve. Before expressing opinions, you evaluate whether they'll find you interesting or overwhelming. Before pursuing opportunities, you calculate whether they'll support or undermine your choices. This external validation dependency gradually erodes your ability to trust your own judgment and act from authentic motivation. Watch how your social connections begin to suffer as you reorganize your life around their availability and approval. You might cancel plans with friends when they finally offer attention, decline social opportunities that might trigger their jealousy or insecurity, or stop investing in relationships that don't serve your campaign to win their love. Your world gradually shrinks around their emotional orbit, leaving you isolated from support systems that might help you recognize the unhealthy dynamic. Your emotional regulation becomes dependent on their mood and behavior rather than your own internal resources and coping mechanisms. When they're warm and available, you feel calm and happy. When they withdraw or seem distant, you feel anxious and desperate. Your emotional state becomes a direct reflection of their treatment rather than a stable internal experience that persists regardless of external circumstances. The personality changes often include becoming more accommodating, less demanding, and increasingly willing to accept treatment that would have been unthinkable before you got caught in their trap. You might find yourself making excuses for their behavior that you would never accept from friends, suppressing needs you once considered non-negotiable, or tolerating disrespect you would have immediately addressed in other relationships. Your boundaries begin to dissolve as you learn that maintaining them threatens their interest, while abandoning them sometimes earns their approval. You might stop expressing hurt when they treat you poorly, avoid asking for what you need to prevent them from feeling pressured, or accept behavior that violates your stated limits because enforcing boundaries feels like risking their withdrawal. This boundary erosion teaches you that your standards are obstacles to love rather than requirements for healthy relationships. The validation cycles create a psychological split where part of you knows their treatment is problematic, while another part defends their behavior and blames yourself for expecting too much. You might find yourself thinking, "They're right, I am being too needy," when you express normal relationship needs, or "I should be more understanding," when they fail to meet basic partnership requirements. This internal split prevents you from taking action to protect yourself because you're no longer sure which voice to trust. Your self-worth becomes entirely dependent on their opinion of you rather than your own self-assessment and the feedback you receive from other healthy relationships. Their criticism carries disproportionate weight, while their rare compliments feel like life-sustaining validation. You lose the ability to maintain stable self-esteem independent of their approval because your sense of worth has become externally regulated by their responses. The trap tightens through your increasing investment in proving your worthiness rather than evaluating their worthiness as a partner. You focus on becoming someone they can't resist rather than determining whether they're someone worth wanting. Your energy goes toward earning their love rather than assessing whether their love is worth earning or whether they're even capable of providing the kind of love you deserve. Your goals and aspirations often become secondary to maintaining their comfort and interest, as pursuing personal growth or external success might threaten their need to feel superior or in control. You might downplay your achievements to avoid triggering their insecurity, abandon opportunities that would create distance, or sacrifice your development to remain available for their unpredictable needs for attention and validation. The most devastating aspect of this trap is how it makes you complicit in your own diminishment while feeling grateful for the opportunity to prove your love. You become convinced that working harder for their attention demonstrates your dedication rather than recognizing it as evidence of their manipulation. You interpret your increasing desperation as proof of how much you care rather than understanding it as a symptom of being in a psychologically unhealthy dynamic. Your friends and family often notice the changes before you do, commenting on how you seem different, less confident, more anxious, or more focused on someone who doesn't seem to appreciate your efforts. Their observations feel threatening because they challenge the narrative you've developed about your relationship being special and worth the sacrifice of your authentic self. The final stage of the trap involves you becoming so identified with the pursuit role that you can't imagine who you would be without this dynamic. Your entire sense of purpose becomes organized around earning their love, understanding their complexity, and proving your devotion. The idea of walking away feels like losing your identity rather than reclaiming it, which keeps you trapped even when you consciously recognize the unhealthy patterns. Breaking free, recognizing and escaping the interest trap. The first step in escaping the avoidance interest trap is recognizing the fundamental difference between being loved and being used for validation. Genuine love makes you feel more like yourself, not less. It encourages your authentic expression rather than requiring you to perform for approval. It creates security that allows you to take risks and grow, rather than anxiety that makes you shrink and accommodate. When you find yourself constantly working to earn someone's interest, you're not in a loving relationship, you're in a psychological trap designed to serve their ego at the expense of your well-being. Trust your body's wisdom about the relationship's health rather than your mind's rationalizations about their potential or your hope that things will improve if you just try harder. Healthy relationships should regulate your nervous system, not dysregulate it. You should feel calmer in their presence, not more anxious. Your sleep should improve with relationship security, not deteriorate from relationship uncertainty. If your physical and emotional health are suffering, your body is telling you something your heart might not want to hear. The most powerful tool for breaking free is implementing complete emotional detachment from their validation cycles. This means making decisions based on your own values rather than their potential reactions, pursuing your goals regardless of their support or criticism, and maintaining your boundaries even when enforcement might trigger their withdrawal. Your freedom depends on becoming internally regulated rather than externally dependent on their unpredictable approval. The nuclear option, and often the only effective option, is walking away completely and maintaining strict no contact while you rediscover who you are without their validation. This isn't about punishing them or trying to make them realize what they've lost. It's about giving yourself space to remember your own worth, rebuild your internal validation system, and develop the strength to either demand better treatment or find someone capable of providing it. Recognize that their interest trap only works if you're willing to be trapped. You always have the power to choose your own worth over their approval, your own peace over their drama, your own authentic self over the version they've trained you to perform. The moment you stop playing their game, you win by default, not because you get them back, but because you get yourself back. Your freedom isn't about changing them or proving your worth or earning their genuine love. It's about recognizing that anyone who requires you to lose yourself to win their interest isn't worth having. The right person will appreciate your authentic self, support your boundaries, and make loving them feel like expansion rather than contraction of who you are. Choose that person, even if it means choosing yourself alone, rather than accepting someone who uses love as a weapon for control.